Eli Vance stood at attention in the back row of Tactical Theory 401. His spine was straight. His eyes faced forward. His hands were flat against his sides. Around him, 40 alien cadets filled the curved lecture hall, their strange bodies folded into seats designed for a dozen different species. None of them looked at him. None of them ever did. The Galactic Naval Academy floated in the cold dark between stars. Station 7 was older than human civilization. Its halls had trained officers for 10,000 years. Warriors from 100 worlds had walked these floors, learned these lessons, and gone on to command fleets that burned across the galaxy. Humans had been part of this for exactly 11 years. Eli was one of 9 human cadets in the entire academy. He was the only one in this class. Commander Aran stood at the front of the room. Which meant he stood 8 feet tall with scales that shifted color with his mood. He had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle, and eyes like polished black stones. His scales were pale blue today. Calm, controlled, disgusted. The commander had never hidden his feelings about humans. In the first week of class, he had called them genetic accidents. In the 3rd week, he had compared their tactical history to children playing with fire. Now, in the 8th week, he simply pretended Eli did not exist. He never called on him. He never acknowledged his raised hand. When Eli submitted assignments, they came back with single-word responses: adequate, sufficient, acceptable. Today was different. Today they were running a live tactical simulation. The holographic display filled the center of the room. Blue lights formed ships. Red lights formed enemies. The scenario was simple: a convoy under attack, limited reinforcements, difficult terrain. Each cadet had offered their solution. Each solution had been picked apart by the commander with surgical precision. Now it was Eli's turn. He had not raised his hand. He had not been called. But when the last cadet finished speaking, silence filled the room. Oran's black eyes swept across the seats and found Eli standing in the back. "The human wishes to speak," the commander said. His scales flickered yellow at the edges. Amusement. "Very well. Enlighten us with the wisdom of your 12,000 years of recorded history." Someone laughed. A wet, clicking sound from one of the cadets near the front. Eli stepped forward. His boots were loud on the metal floor. He reached the holographic display and studied it for 3 seconds. Then he began to move the ships. "The standard response is to reinforce the convoy center," he said. His voice was quiet but steady. "Pull the escort wings tight. Weather the attack. Wait for backup." He paused. "That will fail." Oran's scales darkened. "Explain." "The enemy knows standard doctrine. They expect the defensive formation. Their attack pattern is designed to exploit it." Eli moved more ships. "Instead, I would split the escort. Send 40% on an aggressive flank around the asteroid cluster here. Let them think the convoy is weakening its defense. When they commit to the attack, the flanking group hits their rear. They are forced to split their attention. The convoy accelerates through the gap." The room was silent. Oran stared at the display. His 4 arms were crossed. His scales had gone completely still, which Eli had learned meant he was thinking, or angry, sometimes both. "This strategy," the commander said slowly, "is documented in your species' history. The Battle of Cana, the encirclement at Stalingrad. You are not proposing tactics. You are proposing desperation dressed as cleverness." "It worked," Eli said. "For ground warfare, among primitives, with acceptable casualty rates that would horrify any civilized species." Oran's voice rose. His scales flushed dark orange. "You would sacrifice ships, lives. You would trade blood for position like a merchant haggling over scraps." "I would win." The word hung in the air. Oran moved fast, 4 arms uncrossed. 2 slammed flat against the display console. The other 2 pointed at Eli like weapons. "You would win nothing," the commander hissed. "Your species has been in space for 1 century. You have fought 3 wars, you lost 2 of them. Your tactics are the flailings of children who learned fire yesterday and now believe they understand the sun." He straightened. His scales settled into cold, pale white. "You are disrupting my class. You are wasting my time. You are unfit to wear that uniform." Eli said nothing. "I am invoking Academy Regulation 774, Iran continued. "Removal of a disruptive element from the learning environment, effective immediately. You are barred from this course." Murmurs rippled through the room. A few cadets shifted in their seats. Most stayed perfectly still. "Security will escort you out. Your academic standing will be reviewed by the disciplinary board. I expect they will find your performance lacking." The commander turned away. "Dismissed." Two security officers appeared at the door. They were a species built like walking tanks with gray skin and no visible eyes. They waited for Eli to move. He did not move. "Cadet Vance," one of the officers said, "please come with us." Eli looked at the display, at the ship still frozen in his formation, at the solution that would have worked. Then he looked at Oran's back. "No," he said. The commander turned. His scales flashed red. "What did you say?" "I said no." Eli's voice was still quiet, still steady, but something had changed in his eyes. Something cold had settled there. "I am not leaving." "You have no choice. Regulation 774 does not apply." Eli took one step forward. "Because I am invoking the Crucible Protocol." The silence that followed was absolute. Eli could hear his own heartbeat. He could hear the soft hum of the station's life support. He could hear, somewhere in the distance, the creak of metal as the ancient station shifted in the void. Oran's scales went white, then gray, then a color Eli had never seen before, something between purple and black. "That protocol," the commander said, "has not been invoked in 300 years. It's still valid. It requires you to prove your competence through trial. If you fail, you are expelled. Not from this class, from the Academy, from any naval service in the Galactic Compact. Your career ends." "I know. I will design the trial myself. I will make it impossible." Eli smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of something that had decided to stop pretending. "I know," he said again. "I'm counting on it." The security officers looked at each other. The cadets in the seats had gone completely still. Even the who had laughed was silent now. Oran stared at Eli for a long moment. Then his scales settled into something cold and satisfied. "Very well," he said. "You have 24 hours to prepare. I suggest you use them wisely." He turned to the class. "Everyone out. We are done for today." The cadets filed past Eli in silence. None of them met his eyes. None of them said a word. Only one paused, a young female with silver skin and dark eyes. She looked at him for half a second. Then she looked away and kept walking. Eli watched them go. Then he turned and walked in the opposite direction, toward the Academy archives. He had work to do. The Academy archives were cold and quiet. Eli had been sitting in the same chair for 16 hours. His eyes burned. His back ached. His stomach had stopped complaining about food somewhere around hour 10. Empty cups of stimulant drinks surrounded his workstation like a small fortress. The archive terminal glowed blue in front of him. Thousands of files scrolled past. Battle reports, tactical analyses, after-action reviews. Centuries of warfare compressed into data points and dry summaries. Eli had read 300 of them. He was looking for something specific. The Crucible Protocol was ancient. The Academy had created it in an era when officers settled disputes with honor duels. Over time, the duels had become simulations. The blood had become data, but the core remained the same. If a cadet believed they had been wronged, they could challenge their accuser to prove their worth. The catch was simple. The accuser designed the test. Oran would create a scenario specifically built to destroy Eli. There would be no fairness, no balance, no chance of victory through normal means. Eli was not planning to use normal means. He had spent the first 8 hours studying military doctrine. Their strategies were elegant, precise. They believed in calculated force, overwhelming superiority, and minimal casualties. To them, losing soldiers was a failure of planning. They would never sacrifice lives for tactical advantage. They considered it barbaric. Eli found this interesting. He had spent the next 4 hours studying Oran's service record. The commander was decorated, respected. He had served in 7 major engagements and received commendations in all of them. His rise through the ranks had been steady and unsurprising. He was exactly what they expected their officers to be. Except for one battle. The Battle of Sdrift. Eli had almost missed it. The engagement was listed among Oran's early postings back when he was a junior lieutenant. The official record was brief: a defensive action, heavy losses, strategic withdrawal. Oran had survived. His commanding officer had not. The file was marked as reviewed and closed, unremarkable, routine. Eli did not believe in routine. He requested the extended combat logs. They took 2 hours to decrypt. The archive system was old, and some files required special access. Eli did not have special access, but he had spent 3 weeks learning the archive's security protocols as part of his intelligence coursework. The system was designed to keep out aliens. It had never been updated to handle humans. The extended logs opened on his screen. Eli read them 3 times. The first time he read for content. The second time he read for structure. The third time he read for what was missing. The Battle of Sdrift had been a disaster. An enemy fleet had ambushed a convoy. The escort ships had been outnumbered 3-1. Standard doctrine called for a fighting withdrawal, protecting the convoy while retreating to reinforcement range. That was what the official record said happened. The extended logs told a different story. Lieutenant Oran had been assigned to the command ship's escort wing. 12 small attack craft meant to protect the flagship. When the ambush began, the wing was ordered to hold position, to shield the command ship while the convoy maneuvered. Then something changed. The logs showed the escort wing receiving new orders, orders to break formation, orders to fall back and regroup at secondary coordinates. The orders came from the command ship itself. 12 minutes later, the command ship was destroyed. 200 crew died. The convoy lost 60% of its vessels. The engagement was classified as a tactical defeat. But Oran survived, along with his entire escort wing. Eli stared at the screen. His tired mind worked through the implications. The escort wing should have died defending the command ship. That was their purpose. That was doctrine. Instead, they had retreated. They had left their post, and the orders authorizing that retreat came from the command ship. Someone had given those orders. Someone had decided to save the escort wing instead of using them for defense. The commanding officer could not have given those orders. He was fighting for his life. He needed every ship, which meant someone else had sent them. Eli pulled up the communication logs. They were fragmentary, damaged in the battle, but enough remained to see the origin point of the retreat order. It came from Lieutenant Oran's fighter. Eli sat back in his chair. The archive was silent around him. Somewhere above him, the station hummed with life. Cadets sleeping, instructors preparing, a commander who thought he had already won. The picture was clear now. Oran had panicked during the battle. He had used his access to the communication system to forge orders. He had pulled his wing out of the fight. He had saved himself while 200 burned. And no one knew. The official investigation had blamed the commanding officer. The logs had been corrupted enough to hide the truth. Oran had built his career on the ashes of the people he had abandoned. Eli could expose him. He could take this information to the Academy command. He could watch the commander's life collapse. But that would not help Eli win the crucible. He needed something else, something that would break Oran during the simulation, something that would make him falter, hesitate, crack. Eli did not need to prove the commander was a coward. He needed to make the commander prove it himself. The plan formed in Eli's mind like ice crystallizing in water. Cold, sharp, perfect. He would not fight to win. He could not win. The scenario would be designed to make victory impossible. Instead, he would fight to survive. And while he fought, he would broadcast the truth. Not accusations, not conclusions, just data. Just the raw information from Drift read aloud for everyone to hear. He would let the commander's own history destroy him. Eli closed the files. He encrypted his notes. He stood up from the chair and felt his body protest after 16 hours of stillness. He ignored it. He had 6 hours left. He needed sleep. He needed food. He needed to prepare his mind for what was coming. But first, he needed to do one more thing. He walked to the archive's communication terminal. He typed a message. It was short, simple, addressed to the Academy's senior staff. Admiral, I request your presence at my Crucible trial. I believe you will find it educational. He sent the message. Then he walked out of the archive and into the station's artificial night. The corridors were empty. Most cadets were asleep. Most instructors were preparing for tomorrow's lessons. No one saw Eli walking toward his quarters. No one saw the expression on his face. It was not the face of someone preparing to fail. It was the face of something hunting. Somewhere on the station, Commander Oran was sleeping peacefully. He believed the human had already lost. He believed the crucible would be a formality. He believed his secret was safe. He was wrong about all of it. Eli reached his quarters. He opened the door. He lay down on his bed without undressing. Sleep came quickly. His dreams were full of fire and stars and the sound of ships dying in the void. But beneath the chaos, something else moved. Something patient. Something that had learned to wait. In 6 hours, the crucible would begin. In 6 hours, everything would change. The Combat Simulation Center was the largest room on Station 7. It stretched 300 meters in every direction, its walls lined with holographic projectors that could create any battlefield, any environment, any war. The ceiling was lost in darkness far above. The floor was a grid of sensor plates that tracked every movement, every decision, every heartbeat. Eli stood in the center of the room. He wore his cadet uniform, nothing else. No weapons, no armor, no tools. The simulation would provide everything he needed. Around him, the observation galleries were full. Word had spread overnight. A human cadet invoking the Crucible Protocol, an ancient ritual, a challenge to an instructor. The galleries held every senior cadet on the station. They held instructors from every department. They held officers who had stopped by to watch the spectacle. And in the central observation pod, directly above the arena, sat Admiral. The Admiral was like Oran, but where the commander was large and aggressive, the Admiral was lean and still. Her scales were silver-white, the color of great age and greater authority. She had commanded fleets before Eli's grandparents were born. She had shaped the Academy for 60 years. Her presence at a crucible trial was unprecedented. Eli had asked her to come. He did not know if she understood why. Commander Oran stood at the control station on the far side of the arena. His 4 arms moved across holographic controls, finalizing the scenario. His scales were dark blue, confident, eager. "Cadet Vance," the commander's voice echoed through the chamber. "You have chosen to invoke the Crucible Protocol. Do you understand what this means?" "Yes." "You will face a tactical scenario of my design. You will command a defensive force. You will be evaluated on your performance. If you fail to demonstrate acceptable competence, you will be expelled from this academy and barred from military service in the Galactic Compact." "I understand. Do you wish to withdraw your challenge?" "No." Oran's scales flickered with something like satisfaction. "Then we begin." The lights died. The arena disappeared. Eli felt his body dissolve as the holographic system took hold. When the world returned, he was standing on the bridge of a warship. It was a small vessel, a Corvette-class Defender. Around him, holographic crew members moved through their stations. They were not real, but they would respond to his orders. Through the viewport, he could see the rest of his fleet. 6 ships total, 2 corvettes, 3 frigates, 1 transport vessel filled with civilian refugees. Ahead of them, the enemy waited. Eli counted the red signatures on his tactical display. 30 attack craft, 10 destroyers, 3 cruisers, 1 battlecruiser serving as command ship. The enemy outnumbered him almost 10 to 1. He checked the scenario parameters. No reinforcements for 8 hours. The nearest friendly base was 3 days away at maximum speed. The enemy had positioned themselves between Eli's fleet and the only escape route. The scenario was not designed to be won. It was designed to be lost. Slowly, painfully, completely. Eli smiled. "All ships," he said. "This is Fleet Command. Hold position. Do not engage until my signal." The enemy fleet began to advance. They moved in standard formation, precise, overwhelming, the kind of attack that no rational commander could survive. Eli watched them come. He was not looking at the ships. He was looking at the patterns, the spacing, the timing. He was reading the mind behind the attack. Oran had designed this scenario personally. That meant it would reflect doctrine. It would expect certain responses, defensive formations, fighting retreats, attempts to protect the transport at all costs. Eli was not going to do any of those things. "All attack craft," he said calmly, "break formation. Target the enemy cruisers, ramming speed." The bridge went silent. Even the holographic crew seemed shocked. "Sir," one of the simulated officers turned to face him. "That order will destroy our attack craft." "I know, execute." The ships moved. 2 corvettes broke away from the defensive formation. They accelerated toward the enemy fleet. Their weapons were firing, but that was not their purpose. Their purpose was mass, velocity, impact. The first corvette struck the lead cruiser amidships. The explosion was silent in the vacuum, but Eli felt it in his bones. The cruiser cracked in half. Debris scattered across the battlefield. The second corvette followed. Another cruiser died. The enemy formation stuttered. They had not expected this. Their tactical algorithms were designed for rational opponents, opponents who valued their ships, opponents who wanted to survive. Eli did not want to survive. He wanted to win. "Frigates," he ordered, "advance to mid-range. Target the destroyer screen. Overload your reactor cores on my mark." "Sir, that will." "I know what it will do. Execute." The frigates moved forward. They were going to die. Everyone on the bridge knew it, but they followed orders. They advanced into the enemy formation, weapons blazing, drawing fire away from the transport. And then Eli opened a communication channel, all frequencies, broadcast-wide. "This is Cadet Eli Vance," he said, "commanding the defensive fleet in Crucible Scenario 774. I am about to read a selection from the extended combat logs of the Battle of Drift." In the observation pod above the arena, Commander Oran went very still. Timestamp, hour 3, minute 47. Escort Wing 7 receives orders to break formation and retreat to secondary coordinates. Origin point of orders, Lieutenant Oran's fighter. Eli's voice was calm, almost gentle. The command ship was destroyed 12 minutes later, 200 crew killed. The escape corridor remained blocked. Lieutenant Oran survived. The arena was silent. The battle continued around Eli, his ships dying one by one, but no one was watching the ships. Everyone was watching the observation pod. Oran's scales had gone white, then gray, then that strange color between purple and black that Eli had seen once before. in the classroom, when the challenge was first issued. "Mark," Eli said quietly, "overload reactor cores." The 3 frigates exploded, not randomly, strategically. Their reactor detonations tore through the enemy destroyer screen. 8 destroyers vanished in cascading explosions. The debris fields made navigation impossible for the enemy attack craft. The transport accelerated through the gap. Timestamp, hour 3 minute 52. Eli continued reading. Secondary communication log shows original order to hold position was never rescinded by command authority. The retreat order was unauthorized. Admiral rose from her seat. Her silver scales were absolutely still. She was not looking at the battle. She was looking at Iran. The commander had stopped working the controls. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides. His scales were shifting through colors that Eli did not recognize. Fear, shame, something deeper than both. Eli's last remaining ship, the transport, was alone now. The enemy battlecruiser was bearing down on it. There was no escape, no rescue, no hope. But that had never been the point. "Final entry," Eli said. "Investigation concluded. Cause of defeat attributed to command failure. Lieutenant Iran promoted to full lieutenant for exceptional survival under fire." He paused, let the words hang in the air. "That's human tactics, Commander," Eli said softly. "We don't fight to survive, we fight so you can't." The transport exploded. The simulation ended. The holographic battlefield dissolved into empty air. Eli stood alone in the center of the arena. Around him, 200 officers sat in absolute silence. Above him, Admiral was descending from the observation pod. And in the control station, Commander Iran had not moved at all. The crucible was over. The real trial was about to begin. The silence lasted 7 seconds. Eli counted them. In those 7 seconds, the entire observation gallery remained frozen. 200 officers, dozens of instructors, every senior cadet on the station. None of them moved. None of them spoke. They were all waiting for something to break. Admiral broke it. She descended from the observation pod on a gravity platform. Her silver scales caught the light as she lowered herself to the arena floor. She moved slowly, deliberately. Every eye in the room followed her. Eli stood at attention. He did not move. He did not speak. He had done what he needed to do. The rest was out of his hands. The Admiral walked past him without a word. She crossed the arena floor. Her footsteps were the only sound in the massive chamber. She walked until she reached the control station where Commander Iran still stood frozen. "Commander," she said. Her voice was soft, almost gentle, but it carried through the silence like thunder. "Look at me." Iran turned. His scales were still shifting through those strange colors. His 4 arms hung at his sides. His black eyes were empty. "The data the cadet presented," Admiral said. "Is it accurate?" Iran did not answer. "Commander, is the data accurate?" The word came out broken, wrong. "I was young. The situation was chaotic. I made a decision." "The data, is it accurate?" Another silence, shorter this time, 3 seconds. "Yes." The word fell into the room like a stone into still water. Ripples of whispered conversation spread through the galleries. Officers leaned toward each other. Cadets exchanged glances. An instructor near the front stood up and then sat back down, unsure what to do. Admiral did not react. Her scales remained perfectly still. Her expression did not change. "On the 3rd rotation of the Battle of Drift," she said, "did you order Escort Wing 7 to hold position as originally commanded? Or did you rescind that order and depart with the wing?" The question was simple. The answer would destroy him. Iran's scales flushed dark red, then pale white, then that strange purple-black again. He was cycling through emotions too fast for his biology to process. His 4 hands clenched into fists. His jaw tightened. "I had to survive," he said. The battle was lost. There was nothing we could do. If the wing had stayed, we would have died with them. 200 more deaths for nothing. You abandoned your post. I made a tactical decision. You abandoned your post. Admiral's voice did not rise. It did not need to. You orders. You fled while your commanding officer died. And then you allowed the investigation to blame him for your cowardice. The word hung in the air. Cowardice. In culture, there was no worse insult, no deeper shame. To be called a coward was to be erased, to become nothing. Oran's scales went completely white, the color of surrender, the color of death. I served honorably for 30 years, he said. His voice was barely a whisper. I trained thousands of officers. I gave everything to this academy. You gave nothing. Admiral turned away from him. The gesture was small, simple, but every in the room understood what it meant. She had cut him from her sight. She had made him invisible. To her people, he no longer existed. Oran made a sound. It might have been a word. It might have been a sob. He stumbled backward from the control station. His 4 arms reached out for something to hold, but there was nothing there. The other officers had already stepped away from him. The space around him was empty. He was alone. Admiral walked back across the arena floor. She stopped in front of Eli. Her silver scales reflected his face back at him, distorted and strange. "Cadet Vance," she said, "your performance in this simulation was tactically inadequate. Your entire fleet was destroyed. Under normal circumstances, this would constitute a failure of the Crucible Protocol." Eli said nothing. He kept his spine straight, his eyes forward. "However," the Admiral continued, "the Crucible Protocol requires demonstration of competence, not victory. You demonstrated an understanding of asymmetric warfare, psychological operations, and information control that exceeds most graduates of this academy." She paused. "You also exposed a fraud that has poisoned this institution for 30 years. She turned to face the observation galleries. Every officer was watching. Every cadet was listening. "Cadet Eli Vance has passed the Crucible Protocol," she announced. "His standing in this academy is restored. His record will reflect a commendation for exceptional tactical thinking under pressure." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some cadets shifted uncomfortably. Some officers nodded. The who had laughed at Eli in class was very still. Admiral turned back to Eli. Her expression was unreadable, but something in her eyes had changed. Something that might have been respect, or might have been fear. "Walk with me," she said. Eli followed her out of the arena. Behind them, the observation galleries erupted into conversation. Officers argued. Cadets questioned. Somewhere in the chaos, 2 security officers were approaching Commander Oran. The commander did not resist when they took his arms. He did not protest when they led him away. His career was over. His reputation was ash. Everything he had built for 30 years had been destroyed in 2 minutes by a first-year human cadet. Eli did not look back. The Admiral led him through corridors he had never seen before. They passed security checkpoints. They passed doors marked with symbols he did not recognize. Finally, they reached a private lift that carried them up to the highest levels of the station. The Admiral's office was larger than Eli's entire dormitory wing. One wall was a single viewport looking out at the stars. Another wall was covered in medals, commendations, and holographic images of battles won. The desk in the center was made of wood, real wood, imported from a world that no longer existed. "Sit," the Admiral said. Eli sat. Admiral stood by the viewport. She stared out at the stars for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was different, softer, more tired. "You planned all of this," she said. "The challenge, the research, the broadcast, you knew exactly what would happen." "I suspected," Eli said carefully. "You could have reported your findings to the Academy Command. You could have let the proper authorities handle the investigation. They would have buried it. Oran had too many friends, too much influence. The truth would have disappeared. The Admiral turned to face him. Her silver scales caught the starlight. So you destroyed him publicly, in front of 200 witnesses. You made certain there was no way to hide what he had done. Yes. You understand that what you did was not entirely honorable. You used the crucible as a weapon. You turned a tradition of fair challenge into an execution. Eli met her eyes. Commander Oran was never going to give me a fair challenge. He designed a scenario meant to humiliate me, to break me. He wanted to prove that humans did not belong here. He paused. I proved something different. The Admiral was silent for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was a small smile, cold but real. Yes, she said, you did. She walked to her desk. She pressed a control. A holographic display flickered to life between them. Tell me, Cadet Vance, she said, have you ever heard of the Human Integration Protocol? Eli had not, he said so. Then listen carefully, the Admiral said, because everything you think you know about humanity's place in this galaxy is about to change. The holographic display showed a map of the galaxy. Eli had seen similar maps before in navigation classes and strategic planning lectures, but this map was different. This map had markers he did not recognize. Red points scattered across 100 systems, yellow lines connecting them like a web. The Human Integration Protocol, Admiral said, was established 11 years ago, the day after first contact with your species. Eli studied the map. The red points were concentrated in certain areas, conflict zones, border regions, places where wars had been fought or were still being fought. We did not admit humans to this academy as a gesture of goodwill, the Admiral continued. We admitted them because we needed to understand you, to study how you think, how you fight, how you make decisions that no other species in this galaxy would make. I don't understand. The Admiral touched a control. The map zoomed in on one of the red points, a system Eli did not recognize. The display showed fleet movements, battle lines, casualty reports. The insurgency, she said. A civil conflict that had been grinding on for 40 years. Billions dead. Neither side able to gain advantage. 3 years ago, a human tactical advisor was assigned to the coalition forces as part of a diplomatic exchange. She touched another control. The battle lines shifted. The coalition forces pushed forward. The insurgent positions collapsed. The war ended in 6 months. The advisor suggested strategies that no coalition commander would have considered: sacrificial units, decoy operations, psychological warfare targeting civilian populations. The Admiral paused. The casualties on both sides increased dramatically during those 6 months, but the war ended. 40 years of suffering concluded in half a year. Eli stared at the display. He could see the pattern now. The human advisor had done what humans always did. He had traded lives for time. He had accepted losses that other species found unthinkable, and he had won. This pattern repeats, the Admiral said. Every conflict where human advisors have been involved shows similar results: shorter wars, higher casualties, decisive victories. She turned to face Eli. Your species does not fight the way we fight. You do not value what we value, and that makes you extremely dangerous. We value life, Eli said quietly. You value victory. There is a difference. The Admiral walked back to the viewport. Most species in this galaxy have evolved past the need for total war. We fight limited conflicts. We accept stalemates. We preserve lives even at the cost of objectives. Humans do not do this. You fight until one side cannot fight anymore. You accept any sacrifice necessary to win. That's survival instinct. Our world was dangerous. We had to fight to exist. All worlds were dangerous. All species had to fight. But most species learned to moderate, to compromise, to accept less than total victory. The Admiral's voice was soft. Humans never learned this. You still carry the instincts of a prey species fighting predators, the instinct that says there is no surrender, no compromise, only victory or death. Eli did not know what to say. He had never thought about human nature this way. He had never considered that the things he took for granted might be abnormal, unique, terrifying. The galactic powers are afraid of your species, Admiral said. Not because you are strong, not because you have advanced technology. You are weak. Your technology is primitive. Your numbers are small, but your psychology is different. You think in ways that we cannot predict. You make choices that we cannot understand. She turned from the viewport. Her silver scales had dimmed. She looked older now, more tired. I am offering you a choice, Cadet Vance. You can return to your classes, graduate normally, serve as a line officer in whatever fleet will have you. You will have a career, a life, a future. Lord. Or you can transfer to a classified program. The Human Integration Protocol has been theoretical until now. We have studied humans from outside, analyzed your behavior, predicted your tactics, but we have never trained them directly. She paused. I want you to teach us. Eli sat very still. He could feel the weight of the offer pressing down on him. This was not just a promotion. This was not just an opportunity. This was a chance to shape how the galaxy saw his species. You want me to teach alien officers to think like humans. I want you to help us understand why you are so effective and so dangerous, so that we can work with your species instead of fearing them. And if I refuse, then you return to your classes. No consequences, no reprisals. This offer was never made. Eli thought about it. He thought about Commander Oran, who had feared him because he was different. He thought about the cadets who had laughed at him, who had looked away when he was expelled, who had treated him like he did not belong. He thought about the young female who had paused as she left the classroom, who had looked at him for half a second before looking away. I have a condition, he said. The Admiral raised one silver eyebrow. Name it. The cadets who were in that classroom, the ones who watched Oran expel me, the ones who said nothing. Eli's voice was calm, steady. I want them to know that I remember, not as a threat, just as a fact. I want them to understand that humans notice who stands with them and who does not. Admiral studied him for a long moment, then she nodded. That can be arranged. Then I accept. The Admiral pressed a control on her desk. Welcome to the Human Integration Protocol, Cadet Vance. Your training begins tomorrow. Report to Section 7 at 600. She paused. You are dismissed. Eli stood. He walked toward the door, then he stopped. Admiral, why did you come to the Crucible today? You received my message, but you could have ignored it. You could have sent a subordinate. The Admiral smiled. It was a different smile this time, warmer, almost human. Because you reminded me of someone, she said. A young officer centuries ago. She believed that rules were tools, not chains. She believed that winning was more important than being right. The smile faded. She was dangerous and brilliant, and she changed the galaxy. Who was she? Me, the Admiral turned back to the viewport. Now get out, you have work to do. Eli left the office. He rode the lift back down to the main levels. He walked through corridors that now felt different, smaller, less threatening. The station had not changed, but he had. As he walked, he passed other cadets. Some of them recognized him from the Crucible. Some of them stepped aside as he approached. Some looked away. Some met his eyes with something that might have been respect. One of them fell into step beside him. It was the female, the one who had paused in the classroom. Her silver skin was pale. Her dark eyes were uncertain. I should have said something, she said quietly. In the classroom, when he was expelling you, I should have spoken. Eli glanced at her. He remembered her face from that moment. The half-second of hesitation, the look in her eyes before she walked away. You're saying something now, he said. She nodded. They walked together in silence, through the corridors, past the other cadets, toward the tactical building where tomorrow's classes would begin. Behind them, the station continued its endless orbit. Stars drifted past the viewports. Somewhere in the depths of space, ships moved and wars were fought and civilizations rose and fell. And somewhere on a dozen desks across the galaxy, a classified report was being read. Its title was simple: Human Integration Protocol, Threat Assessment Update. The conclusion, written in Admiral's own hand, read, "Recommendation: do not give them a reason to fight us, under any circumstances, ever." The words glowed on screens across the galactic compact, in war rooms, in council chambers, in the private offices of admirals and generals and politicians who had never met a human in their lives. They read the words, they studied the assessment, and slowly, carefully, they began to reconsider everything they thought they knew about the strange, short-lived, impossibly stubborn species from the third planet of an unremarkable star. The humans were not a threat because they were strong. They were a threat because they did not know how to quit. And that, in a galaxy of careful compromises and calculated losses, was the most terrifying thing of all.